The Washington Nationals actually made some roster moves today, and they made some free agent signings. Congratulations. We are finally on the board because, quite frankly, let's be honest, they haven't done squat this offseason, and it's really starting to irk me. I'm going to get into all of that. Plus, I'm going to talk about some new potential ownership news that could be affecting the sale of the Washington Nationals for one of the front runners who are involved in the sale of the Nationals. And also, the Nationals are finally going to be spending on analytics, and they're going to be getting the right people in the right positions. And I'm going to get into all of that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
If you don't know who I am Ryan Clary. You can follow me at Twitter at RyanClary11. You can also follow the show at LO_Nationals over on Twitter. And I've taken my Nationals fandom into a Nationals podcast with Locked On Nationals. And thank you for making the Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever, and I mean wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, as I was plugging earlier, the Nationals actually made some roster moves, and one being Stone Garrett. You probably don't know enough about him, and that's kind of an issue. That's kind of an issue that I want to be getting into for today's show. Also, we signed Jeimer Candelario. Jeimer Candelario. If you didn't know him, from 2020 to 2021, he wasn't that bad. But in 2022, he took a major setback in a big way to where it really kind of points some questions as to what are the Nationals doing? What are we doing? Because at one point, this team was aggressive. This team wanted to improve their team that they have in front of them that they already see on paper. This organization, this ownership group, this front office, they wanted to improve the team. And what is one way by doing just that? It's by spending money. And the Nationals seamlessly do not do that anymore. And it just irks me even more as to when I see that the Lerners are up from $4.4 billion net worth in April to yesterday reported by Forbes, which was up to $6.2 billion. What happened in that stretch? And now let me get this started by saying this. Net worth isn't something to where you just have $6.2 billion sitting in the bank. And I understand that, and I get that. But you're telling me you've grown $1.8 billion. And yes, the Lerners, it's not just the Nationals. We know that they're kind of the real estate kings in the DC area. We know that they have their hands in a lot of different pockets right now. But the whole point of this is to better your team on the field. And as you see all these different franchises that are spending money to improve their team. And we aren't doing that. After being one of the laughing stocks in the league last year, you trade away Juan Soto, you trade away Josh Bell. The year before that, you trade away Trey Turner, that you had a great opportunity to potentially extend. You trade away Max Scherzer. And then you sign Steven Strasburg to that huge bazilli contract. What are we doing now that we just sit here today and we watch every other team make a big splash after big splash, especially in the NL East? You see the Atlanta Braves. They're going to be spending money this offseason. The New York Mets. You already know they're going to be spending money. The Miami Marlins might even get into some of these guys. And the Washington Nationals are, and of course, the Philadelphia Phillies. They're the favorites right now to land Trey Turner, our former shortstop, that we could have had for a while here. But now we sit here today, November 29th, 2022, and the Nationals are $41 million right now under the MLB average for AAV. What are you doing? This is something that is totally unprecedented Because truly, when you look at this team and what they average in revenue from being in a big market, being in the nation's capital of the United States of America, and you are sitting here today, 21st out of the 30 teams in the MLB in payroll heading into this season. And it's going to skyrocket. Numbers will start adding up into what they pay for these guys because they're going to have to pay some of them. You're going to have to pay some of these guys to come here to join this team. Stone Garrett and J-Mare Candelario, that's awesome. I'm sure J-Mare is going to be a potential piece at third base. But come on, what are we doing here? We're convincing ourselves of these guys who may not be that good, who may have kind of lost a step a little bit. And you give someone like Stone Garrett, who, I will say over the last 2 years in the minor leagues, he's hit well. But come on. You're the Washington freaking Nationals in the nation's capital. And you're sitting here today and you're not spending a single dime of that. I don't need you to go out there and spend for Aaron Judge. I don't need you to go out and trade your farm for Shohei Ohtani. But what I do need is to get some middle of the pack MLB guys who are prominent starters in this game. Someone that you can actually put up a jersey in that team store and be proud of. Put him on that season ticket holder calendar and have him be the face of that and be proud of what you signed to better this team. Because not spending the money right now is baffling to me. And they don't need to spend it right now, but the sign of the times are what you've seen over the last 2 years and why they trade away these guys like Trey Turner, who was not a Scott Boras client. You see what they're doing. And they're kind of just cheaping out at this point. And it's frustrating. Because yes, I do technically cover the team now. But I'm still a fan just like you guys listening wherever you may be listening. And just to see this and to see the fall from where we were and from what we spent back in the day compared to what we are now, it's a joke. A complete joke. Especially after seeing what Forbes reported with the Lerners now being worth $6.2 billion after all this offseason of me kind of patting them on the back and saying, hey, they've lost money. We know that. And I still think they have. But obviously, their net worth went up. For some reason, it went up a lot. Almost $2 billion worth over the span of 1 year. What is going on with that? And why aren't you putting some of that money into the team that you still own? Yes, you are selling the team. But as of right now, you are the owners. You are the people to fund this team, to be able to spend in free agency, to better the product that you put on the field. And really, when you think about it this way, let's say you own a restaurant. You own a restaurant, and let's say it's just middle of the pack. It's a fine restaurant. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's a fine restaurant. Are you going to put less money into it to better the product and then try to convince people of that? No, that's not how the world works. More capital into it is usually the better outcome. Yes, there's also some small things in this, little wrinkles that you're going to have the right people in the right places. And I truly think we do. We've seen it with Mike Rizzo. He's won a World Series. He's conducted a World Series team. He started at the bottom and climbed the mountaintop. And now we're falling off of it. And it's not really because of Mike Rizzo. It's because of this ownership and not having the willingness to spend money. And that's the frustrating part. They have to start spending some of this money. And yes, they are about to sell. And I'm sure this obviously affects what they want to do. But you know what's a little more valuable than selling the worst team in the MLB from this past season? It's having a middle-of-the-pack team with some pieces to build around on the major league roster already. Especially when you have a pretty decently loaded farm system right now. But those guys aren't going to be coming up for a while. They're not ready yet. They're still cooking in the kitchen. They're not out there. and just see this and have them sit patiently and not really do anything this offseason, which is fine. Maybe they'll surprise us all and start to spend some of this money. But I truly believe that they think J-Mayor Candelario could have a potential spot at third base when you have Carter Kieboom or even Jake Alou fighting for this spot. But no, we're cheaping out on some guys who have maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling, but the floor is at the bottom, just like where it is with Carter Kieboom. And I'm not cutting that anymore. I've made too many excuses for Ted Lerner and the family here. I have. And I respect them. I love them. They brought us a World Series. But the fact that we don't spend now at a time where we could be spending the money, or not we, they, and they're not just doing it. They won't do it. And it is frustrating. Because this is somewhere to where you could be getting like guys like Brandon Drury. You could even sign someone like Mike Clevenger, who is now off the market, someone who I really wanted with one of those high ceilings. But now you come back to it, and the Lerners, after growing $1.8 billion from April to November 29th of 2022, and you're only going to be spending $5 million on J-Mayor Candelario. What are we doing? And who took the owners that were once so aggressive in making this team and the product that they put on the field even better, and making Mike Rizzo's job a little bit easier, giving him a little bigger budget so that he could start splashing some cash and making a real impact on this team? Because yes, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do think this rebuild was necessary. But I don't think you have to bottom out the way that you did last year. And it certainly is looking like this upcoming season, we're probably going to be bottoming out again. And to see that $1.8 billion growth from the Lerner family, a team that's probably going to be selling their team soon, and to see them just sit back and do nothing with it is frustrating as hell. So the Lerner family, they need to start spending money. They need to start being aggressive again. And they need to have that mindset of what they had back in 2015 when you gave Max Scherzer that, at that point, a ridiculous contract that people thought were out of this world. And then signing Daniel Murphy the next offseason. Signing Jason Worth in 2011. We need that Lerner family. And we need it quick. Because this product that they're going to be putting out this year, right now, is not looking that good. It's just not. I can tell you about a product that's looking pretty damn good in my mind. BetOnline.net, and BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all on BetOnline.net. The FIFA World Cup is going on right now. We know what that means. I know nothing about soccer or football, whatever you call it. Also, college football, I'm a casual fan. But my friends over at betonline.net, they are the pros. They are the people that I go for when I need betting advice, and I recommend the same for you guys. They are always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And you can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And now back in some of this conversation with some free agency stuff. As the Washington Nationals, they did make a little bit of moves, but not in free agency. They're starting to put some money into their analytical department, the team that provides analytics. I mention Moneyball a lot in this show, and maybe this is what the Nationals are doing. Maybe we're a Moneyball team now, where we're going to use analytics and we're going to out-calculate the other teams. Maybe that's what we are now. Maybe that's just what we have to look for in this upcoming season. Maybe they know something that we don't about J-Mayor Candelario or Stone Garrett. Stone Garrett, who's only had a couple at-bats in the major leagues. Maybe it's that. But come on. Do we really think that? That's beside the point. But the Nationals did make some moves in adding about 18 positions into their analytical department. And this is something that is long past from what they deserve. Because this Nationals team, we know it. Mike Rizzo, the one knock that he's had is that he's never really been bought in fully into the analytics, and I back that 100%. We've seen it in draft classes in years past. They like to get the big, flashy name guy, the Eric Fetty who slides back in the draft out of UNLV. They like to get him. They like to get a Brady House who falls out of the top 10, and no one wonders why. What is the hole in his swing that they don't see? That the Nationals were like, we're going to make that guy our 11th overall pick. Nothing wrong with Brady House, but the early results with him haven't been amazing just yet. So what will this add with the analytics with the Nationals? And quite frankly, if you remember what Austin Voth said about this in the team, he never really slighted the Nationals, but he kind of did it in a backhanded way about when he said he just raved on and on about what Mike Elias and their front office with the Baltimore Orioles were doing just 30 miles up north, and how their analytics really helped Austin Voth, and he was really one of their better pitchers of 2022 after we DFA'd him. He was our trash, and we turned into the Baltimore Orioles gold for them. Someone who pitched in meaningful games down the stretch for a team that wasn't that far out of the playoff race, and at one point was sitting in a wild card spot. And now we sit here today, and the Nationals are just adding 18 spots in their organization. And yes, let's applaud that for a second, because this is going to help, especially at the major league level, where we're finally going to have a biomechanics expert that's going to be working with pitchers and telling them what they will be seeing and what they're going to know so much more about their body. I'm no biomechanics expert, but I got to visit some clubhouses this year who were bought into analytics, including the Baltimore Orioles. And they're not showing us these biomechanics themselves. They're not showing you how it works. But you're starting to see the results about how the Baltimore Orioles were the worst team in baseball in 2021. And then in 2022, they're in the playoff race. And right now, they sit here and they have the best farm system in baseball after graduating Adley Rutschman this past year, the number one overall prospect in baseball, on any board that you see. So the Nationals now getting into this in 2022 on the bark of a 2023 season. It's late. Let's be honest. It's late, but I'm glad it's getting done now, because I'm tired of missing out and always just scratching my head sitting here. Well, how did we miss on Mason Denneberg? How did we miss on Eric Fetty? How did we miss on Carter Kieboom? Why isn't Carter Kieboom taking a step up? Well, I'm not saying this what it was. Teams maximize the most of what they can with analytics and what math and calculators can provide. You use the technology to your advantage, not like the Houston Astros, but like these modern ball clubs and what they do. And analytics are part of this, where you have guys who, with the biomechanics, and I can't get into the details of this because I just don't know enough about it, but to see the spin rate on balls, to see what different hitter swings on this different count, using all these analytics and all these numbers just to perfect your craft. And that's something the Nationals have been missing out on for years now. For player development, they're going to be adding an assistant director of player development technology and strategy. That's a big title there. A biomechanics expert working with pitchers, biomechanics expert on strength and conditioning, a hitting consultant, a manager of minor league logistics, 2 clubhouse assistants in West Palm Beach, and 5 performance associates, 1 at each affiliate. That's a big move for this organization. They're going to have someone with a calculator in their hand typing up all these different analytics and what these players need to know. Hey, you need to be this far away from third base, Jake Alou, when you're over there in the field. Hey, CJ Abrams, you're over at shortstop. I want you to plug this gap a little more than the other one because this player hits it in this direction. Hey, when you're going against this pitcher, you're going to look for his arm slide. If you see that his arm angled in this direction, a slider is coming. That's the kind of direction that we're going to be looking for with this new analytics setup. And it's something that benefits organizations all around the MLB. Something that the Nationals have been far and away dead last in for a while now. If you follow the Nationals like I do, then you may know that. And people make fun of us for it. I have someone who's a coworker of mine who's an Orioles fan, and he stinks, by the way. Not literally, but figuratively, he stinks because of an Orioles fan, but whatever. He makes fun of us for it because we're just lacking it. We lack the opportunities that we could be giving some of these younger guys. And that's the frustrating part for me. That's the part that I just can't get behind. Because we're missing out on a lot of different things. And these are things that we shouldn't be missing out on. We should be at the forefront of it with what the Lerners and what we've accomplished. We should be behind these things. And I think new ownership could potentially bring that in a little bit more. And I'm going to get into that after I tell you guys about Locked On Sports today. So thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. And now back into the action as we continue to talk about some ownership situation with the Washington Nationals. As, hey guys, Ted Leonsis is the front runner right now to buy the Washington Nationals. As we all know, I've said it plenty of times now, that they've had a new investor into Monumental Sports and Entertainment. And some may ask, well, what does that have to do with this? Well, there were reports a few weeks ago saying that Ted Leonsis may kind of be jumping the guns on what this price could be to buy the Washington Nationals. And those reports seem kind of true at this point, because you're going to need a lot of money, especially seeing with what these sports teams are going through right now. Sports teams are expensive. Professional organizations are expensive to buy. And so right now, they had a billionaire, Jeff Skoll, have a minority investment, about $300 million into Monumental Sports and Entertainment. And this is a direct link to the Washington Nationals. But it does mean something. Why now, of all times, after that report comes out a few weeks ago, stating that they may be jumping their guns a little bit and they may be taking a step back into buying the Washington Nationals. And now, this seems like a step forward into buying the Nationals. Because that small couple $100 million investment, small, quote unquote, that's a pretty big deal. That's going to free up some money for them to potentially do something, because we know where the Masson debacle stands for us right now. The MLB doesn't really seem too interested in helping us out too much. And quite frankly, can they really do that much with it? Probably not. Probably not. But seeing this with Ted Leonsis, it's kind of just giving me the sense that he's being even more aggressive. He's going to want a slice of this pie with the Nationals. He's going to want to come to the table, and because he's a businessman. Any businessman right now is going to want an opportunity to own this team. Because quite frankly, as much as I scream and cry about not spending in free agency, right now we're kind of on the up with our farm system. We got a lot of talent in there. And that's something we're going to be getting into a lot more in this offseason, especially some deep dives with some of the guys who are seeing James Wood and who will be seeing Elijah Green moving forward down in like low A Fredericksburg. We're going to be seeing those guys. But right now, when you see him getting a couple $100 million extra in his pocket, it kind of makes you wonder, well, what is that for? What do you want to do there? And then especially about a month ago now, when there was a report out saying that there's a couple NBA teams that are looking to sell, the Leonsis owns the Washington Wizards as well. They're going to be wanting to free up some cash to get into the MLB and buy the Washington Nationals. That's no report by me. But if you're waking up just like I am and you're smelling that coffee the way that I am, it's starting to align and look just like that. That they just need some extra money right now to really solidify this deal and to get the Washington Nationals under Leonce's family. Because you see it with the Lerners. They just seem checked out of it. They have no interest in signing free agents. They have no interest in bettering this roster by spending money on big name guys and not trading away Juan Soto and giving the extension to Trey Turner back when that was an option. Obviously now that's not. He's a free agent, but we're not going to be signing him. Our hand is not in the mix for that. And that's all. That's the frustrating episode for Locked On Nationals. So thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for sticking with me today. As I know I have a shaky voice, I am still recovering from a little sickness, but I'm on the upswing. I will be getting better, and hopefully the Washington Nationals will be getting better, because that's really what I care about. So thank you for listening. Have a good day. Go Nationals.